Today on Pro Church Daily, we're talking about one reason to never use a slider on your church's website.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Daily, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you'll get your daily dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift we've seen in the last 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills. I'm joined, as always, by the boss man. It's Brady Shearer. And today, we're talking about one simple reason that you should never use a slider on your church's website.
Let's first start this episode of Pro Church Daily, Alex, by defining what a church website slider is, or what a website slider is, also known as a carousel or a slideshow. This is the box usually positioned at the top of a website that has multiple slides that auto-rotate. So you land on a church's website, and you'll see a slide, and it says, "Welcome home," and then within 3 to 5 seconds, that slide will rotate automatically without the user clicking. It'll just happen, and then the next slide will be like, "Men's breakfast, happening Saturday morning, 8 a.m., see you there," and then it'll slide to another. Now, this is one of the most popular sections, segments, strategies that churches use and employ on their websites. We did a case study looking at more than 1,000 different church websites, and we found that out of those 1,008 websites that we analyzed, 76.1% lacked a primary focal point. And if your church's website is using a slider at the top of your homepage, you would fall into that category, one of the churches that lacks a primary focal point. Because if you have a slider, that, by definition, cannot be a primary focal point, because a slider, to be a slider, necessitates multiple focal points.
Right.
And this is important. And there's a reason why churches love sliders. And the reason is that the theory behind a slider is that it allows you to showcase multiple different promotions in a single area.
Exactly.
And to prove a point, churches loving sliders, I actually went to one of the most popular, if not the most popular, website theme marketplaces on the internet.
Okay.
This is themeforest.net of the Envato network. And I went to their search bar and I typed in just a single keyword, church, and their search results return 30 results on each page. And so I looked at the first 30 search results that came up, best mapped to the keyword church.
Yep.
So these are like the most popular church website themes in the world, basically. And of those 30 themes on the first page, 25 out of those 30 had church website sliders at the very top of the page. So that is 80+% of church website themes that are using sliders at the very top. And so if you're a church and you want to get a WordPress theme or a website theme, HTML or otherwise, you might think that sliders are awesome because pretty much every theme has them. And like I said, the idea behind sliders isn't necessarily poor, the thought behind it, which is we can show a bunch of different things.
Exactly.
And that makes it easy. But the data very clearly proves that it doesn't work that way. And this idea doesn't actually work out in practice. And the other thing to keep in mind when it comes to sliders is that it's probably helpful to use a slider in the sense that you are going to be able to sign off with your departments, with your ministries, and with your pastor pretty easily. And this is another reason why sliders are so popular amongst churches, is that it solves that problem. Hey, what should go on the website?
Right.
What deserves the top of the page? What should we put in the most prominent location?
Let's put everything there.
Exactly. And this is good for the internal operations of a church, but it doesn't serve the user, the visitor to your website, well. And the data proves this empirically. So this is a study conducted by Notre Dame University. It found that sliders have a click-through rate of less than 1%.
That's terrible.
Furthermore, 84% of the clicks in this study were on the first slide in the rotation.
Of course,
So essentially, even if you have 3, 5, 7, 9 slides in your carousel, more than 8 out of 10 of the visitors to your site are clicking on the first one anyway. And if you're wondering, less than 1% click-through, that sounds bad, but what's the average? Well, the industry average is around 3.5%. And so less than 1% means 4 times worse than the industry average. And that industry average, that study, it looks at click-through rate everywhere, not just, the top of the page, the primary call to action. And that's what your slider is. It's the very first thing on a website. It's the primary call to action. So to have that low of a click-through rate is frankly just abysmal. And there are multiple studies that back this up. This is not an isolated study. Another study by a digital agency called Beaconfire looked exclusively at non-profit websites that were using sliders. And so this is even more specific and close to the church world. And again, this study found a click-through rate of less than 1% final study that I found by Search Engine Land looked at a number of different sites in this study, a total of 768,000 plus total page views, so 750,000 page views, and that resulted in a total of 1,287 clicks on the slider, which is a balmy 0.17% click-through rate. So if your primary call to action on your website is getting, at least 4 times less clicks than the average click-through rate across all industries, you might want to consider doing something
You
different.
should probably do something about that.
It's frankly just not working well. And what you don't want to do in this case is prioritize the internal operations of your church and the internal function of making the men's ministry happy and the women's ministry happy and the pastor happy. And by doing that, sacrifice the experience of a new visitor.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your goal is to make a good first impression with your church's website. That should be the primary aim. And the data shows that sliders do not create a good user experience for your visitors, and that's what's going to contribute to a bad first impression. Again, the theory of the slider is simple. A user sees a variety of different promotions and clicks on the one that most interests them, right?
Yeah.
It just, in practice, does not work that way. The data is clear. It's a bad experience for your users, and it's a bad experience for you, the creator of the website, because people aren't clicking. People aren't taking action.
Right.
And that's, at the end of the day, what you want your website to accomplish.
Yeah, and as somebody who's built multiple church websites on volunteer hours in the past, at face value, a slider seems like a great idea. Like you said, you have lots of things, maybe lots of things happening this week. You want to let your people know about them. It's like, oh, we can put them all at the top of the website. We don't have to put it on another page, or people don't have to scroll. It'll all be here. So it seems like a good idea, but I love what you said, and it's so imperative, and we've kind of made this shift in posture at our church, not just on our website or our web presence, but just in all the decisions we're making at church. Instead of making them from our perspective, from the churchgoer's perspective, from someone who's been a part of this church for a long time, who knows things, we've started intentionally thinking, okay, how would a first-time visitor perceive this? How would somebody who doesn't know anything about church feel at this moment in our service? What would they think about this? Do we need to explain this more? And so for anyone who's been on another website that's not a church website and seen a slider, you've probably run into one of these problems where you're looking at what you think is a primary focal point, and boom, it's gone. And then you're trying to find the nav, the little arrows to determine, how do I click to get back to that? Now you're lost, you're 2 slides deep. So practically, they just don't work. We think from our perspective, like you said, from the operations staff perspective, this is a great idea. But from the first-time visitors perspective, and these are the people you're reaching with your website. This is who your website is built for. It's just not working for them. So let's find a better way.
And speaking of a better way, we don't want to just, crucify sliders and then not give you a better option. If you go to the Nucleus blog, blog.nucleus.church, we've got a big article there on website sliders. You can find all of the data that we've included in this episode of Pro Church Daily, as well as our recommended alternative to the church website slider. There is a better way, and we detail it in full in that article.
Yeah.
And before we leave, we've got another free resource for you, and that is our Ultimate Church Website Page Template Library. It's a free download that you can get at prochurchtools.com/nucleus. In there are 7 different church website page templates that we've put together, pre-written copy, pre-structured. Download is 100% free.
Yeah.
This is the exact copy that we would use on our church's website for pages such as the staff page, the I'm new page, the plan to visit page, really some of the most important pages on your church's website. So go get that free download if you haven't already, prochurchtools.com/nucleus. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another episode of Pro Church Daily.
Hey, thanks for watching today's episode of Pro Church Daily. Make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
And if you like this video, it'd mean the world to us if you give it a thumbs up.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.